No, let's not get.
Other than she fucked up again and got pinched for shoplifting.
No, hold on. No, no, no. We're not gonna do. We're not gonna do half naked, 6 foot tall Amazon women tonight.
You may not, I might.
All right. Okay, hold on. Let me get this started.
On this episode of the John 1911 Podcast, Kraken goes fishing, M16A2 questions, U.S. Army goes Carlos Halfcock, and they came for the Magna Carta.
Okay, good evening, everybody. This is Kraken and Marky, and this is episode 337 of the John 1911 Podcast. Today is Sunday, May the 12th. It is, 10:16 Eastern Standard Time, and we are trying to get back to a podcast schedule because it's basically all been my fault because I've been dealing with a bunch of construction around here, obviously with moving the business. So, how you been, stranger?
Well, I'll tell you what, just got back from a fishing trip, so I'm pretty tired, but had a lot of fun, caught some nice fish.
Yeah, I saw that. Where was that? Can you tell us where the it was it a tournament or was it just a trip?
It was just a trip. We were going to fish a tournament, and the fishing for catfish sucked, so we just stayed on walleye the whole time.
Huh. Okay. I'll put some pictures up. We'll probably post some pictures tomorrow. I just drank some water and realized I didn't mute the microphone, so hopefully I didn't just gross everybody out. Um, so sorry, it's been a while. Sorry, folks. Man, I'll tell you what, some good looking fish in these pictures, buddy.
Yeah, they were some big ones. We really got on a good pattern Saturday, especially.
Wow, look at that. So I see a picture of four, and you're holding. There's a solo picture of you holding a fish to the camera. What kind of fish is that?
That's a walleye.
That's a walleye. So is
Yep.
this catch and no? These are no. I saw the fish laying down. So did you get to eat these?
Oh yeah, it's catch and release to the grease.
Catch and release to the grease, dude. That might be the title of the podcast.
They
So
swam in the grease tonight.
let me write that down. Keep talking so I can write that.
Yeah, we had four nice fish Saturday. If it had been a walleye tournament at that particular lake, we'd have won that hands down because there'd never been a 26-pound bag weighed in at a tournament at that lake. So yeah, it was a really good trip, and I got to see the Northern Lights and got
Oh,
some
did you
fishing
did
in, and
so where was the trip at? Was it in Nebraska or was it farther away?
it was north central Nebraska, reservoir called Calamus Reservoir up in Burwell, Nebraska.
Okay. And
They've
so
got,
you did see the Northern Lights all the way over in Nebraska.
oh yeah, yeah, especially, well, they were seeing it clear down here in southern Nebraska, but we were, oh, not an hour from the South Dakota border, so we really got a light show.
Okay. Um, yeah, they apparently were here in Ohio, and I heard people in Texas and Florida were seeing them. So
Yeah.
uh, I missed them Friday night. I think it was Friday night. I was predisposed, and then Saturday night I was working at the range late. So last night, and I went out at like I don't know 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock, and 2 o'clock, 2:30, and 3 o'clock. I didn't see anything last night, so I don't know if there was any last. So I guess I missed my chance at the Northern Lights at least for a
Yeah.
while.
You blew it.
Hmm. So, well, speaking of since you were close to South Dakota, since you brought it up, you mentioned South Dakota. Have you heard or seen anything from Kristi Noem and what's been going on with her?
So I've been off the grid for a little bit. The last thing I heard about her was the whole dog killing episode, and people are just wigging out over that. And
Well,
it's become the standing joke on Fox News. They've every stupid dog killer joke they could make, they've done three times.
are they really? So I don't watch any of that news
Oh
anymore.
yeah, it's well, not the news shows, the
Yeah.
editorial shows, but yeah, they and none of them understand it, and she explained it perfectly actually, but if you're a city person, you're not gonna understand it. So
Well,
there,
well,
it's making
I
her look bad, but
I made a point on this last podcast we did. I did a solo one. And Kristi Noem in some level is kind of gotten in trouble, at least regarding the dog, is because she told the truth. It's like, don't tell
Yeah.
people there isn't a Santa Claus. Don't tell people that there isn't an Easter Bunny, and don't tell people that when they were little kids and when your parents took your dog to go live at the farm, my air quotes, that your dog did not get to go live at the farm, and
It
you know,
bought the
and
farm.
and even yeah, and even all even if you think you're special and your dog was different, went to go quote live at the farm unquote. Have you ever been out anywhere to a farm and there's been a bunch of dogs and they're like, man, why you got all these dogs? Like, oh, these are all the dogs that they bring in from town that are retired. Like, you never see that either.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, Kristi Noem may have told the truth, but the thing is, so stuff's coming out. I didn't see this because I don't watch Fox. Ever since I stopped watching Fox News, basically, I've probably a week or so, well, I don't know, probably a month or so after the 2020 election. I just got so sick of it. But
Yeah.
I guess she got on in her book. She has claimed that she had a meeting with Kim Jong Il or Kim, Rocket Man, whichever. I don't remember which Kim is in charge now. I can never say her name. I can picture him. And then she's claiming that she had a meeting with Macron, the
Yeah.
president of France, and it's like there's no record of any of this. And apparently today or the past couple of days, the French government has come out and they're claiming they don't know what the hell she's talking about. She's never met with the president of France or had anything scheduled or whatever. And it was becoming more and more clear that Kristi Noem is crazy. Um, and you know, while I like her and she seemed like an interesting person, she has totally slit her own throat on some of this stuff.
Oh,
And
definitely.
yeah, I mean, she's no, I mean, look, Donald Trump is not going to choose her to be vice president. And some people could make an argument that maybe she thinks she will, or maybe the dog thing. He's not going to choose her because of the dog thing, because Donald Trump just doesn't want anything to do with that kind of issue. But she was never going to be vice president, and here's why. And this hasn't really been reported in the mainstream media, but while she's been governor of South Dakota, she was carrying on this torrid affair with Corey Lewandowski, who used to run the Trump campaign. He worked in the Trump White House. He had dated Hope Hicks. He dated this other woman, left his wife. There's all this drama. But the problem is, it's not like, well, she cheated on her husband or all that. Is she's been carrying on this affair, going to these functions and trips with Corey Lewandowski, probably on the dime of South Dakota, and it was so flagrant. Everybody was seeing this, and the, she would never survive the scrutiny of the money. If you watch, if you're a conservative or a Trump supporter and you give two shits about who Fannie Willis is fucking and who she's spending money on in her office, if that even remotely is on your radar as like a sign of corruption and how fucked up all this is, you wait till they get into the Kristi Noem shit. There was no way I mean, she's in trouble probably. And it has nothing to do with this dog thing. And I can't help but feel that a lot of people are harping on the dog stuff and this other stuff because they're trying to, I think some of her competition's trying to derail her, but it's also I suspect it's coming out. Bitch is crazy. If you live in South Dakota and you're listening to this podcast, and you're a conservative and you're a Republican, like if you're a Democrat, don't tell me you're a Democrat in South Dakota that you hate her because of course you're going to hate her. But if you're a Republican and you're South Dakota, email me at podcast at John1911.com and tell me what the hell people in South Dakota think of this woman and what's been going on with her. Like, she traveled so much with Corey Lewandowski that people were wondering well, number one, where her husband was, and number two, how can she be gone from South Dakota so much? I mean, there's major issues there, and I want to get that on record before it blows up. So there's going to be a lawsuit, or criminal, or something with her with that. So
Yeah,
there.
whoever helped her with that book and said, yeah, that's a good idea, they need to be fired immediately,
Well,
or
no, wait,
become
no,
or
no,
become a
no.
witness for the state, one of the two.
Well, no, 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 no. I don't know who her, because I guess so. What you're alluding to is she's got a ghostwriter who wrote her book, and then the thing with Kim Rocket Man, she's claiming she's claiming that the ghostwriter put that in the book, and so it's not her fault. Like it was a mistake, and she's throwing
Yeah,
the ghostwriter under the bus, and it's like, okay, cool story, bro. She uh, Governor Noem did the audio book of her book. They have recordings of her reading this. Hi, whatever, and met with Rocket Man, and I told him, Rocket Man, that South Dakota is going to stand up to communism. And she's reading that in her own voice of doing the audio version of her book because she's on this full court press trying to become vice president. And it's like, you read this. You didn't occur to you when you read this that this was wrong? That's not true. She told this to the ghostwriter. The ghostwriter wrote it. She read it, and now she's getting called out on it because she can't prove it, and she's trying to blame the ghostwriter, and it's scummy. I mean, she's scum.
yeah,
I mean, this is like a real character test here, and it's like, come on, like, what are you doing, lady? Like, I mean, like, the fact that she thinks she could do this and run for vice president with Donald Trump, who's going to get. I mean, they are so far up Donald Trump's ass that this woman, there's a lot of people who would consider working in government or consider working for Donald Trump that won't because they don't want to put up with the scrutiny. But this woman thinks she can tell bold-faced lies and just march on into the White House. It's like her judgment, there's something wrong with her. It's like if she thinks that's a good idea, because they're already destroying her. And it's just like, man, I think it's an interesting story. And I saw the thing, I haven't really followed it that much, but the French thing today, I was like, oh man, even the French are coming out after her. It's like, that's fucking terrible. But anyway, whatever. So I don't want to talk too much about politics. We'll save that for Danny. So okay, you know what? Talk me off the ledge on an M16A2 or a Cologne M16A2. So
I
tell
can't
people what
talk you
we've been
off the
discussing.
ledge because I like them, but I
Mm-hmm.
like legitimate A2 copies, not home built stuff that people don't have right, and not the features of an A1 mixed with the features of an A2 mixed with something that was never on them to begin with,
Now
like that
Colt was selling.
CAR flash hider.
I know, well that's because you're just picking on an auction that I sent you. But no, Colt sold a bunch of these guns with A1 uppers, but with A2 handguards.
Yes and no. Uh, the A1 upper it's still going to have the triangular like the SP1 forearm. It's not going to have a clamshell. Uh, the rear sight for me is a deal breaker, even though there were some A2s with the A1 type rear sight. But like that one you sent me, the parts kit one, that was just a hot mess.
Yeah.
But I love a legitimate A2 or A2 clone. I mean, I had one back in the day. It was an H bar. They're heavy as a son of a bitch, but uh, they're a good gun if you can find one. But I just hate the mixed matched look and then trying to sell it off as an A2.
Well, back in the day, and I haven't really told this story. I had an H bar. I had an A2 fixed carry handle H bar. I'm pretty certain it didn't have a bayonet lug on it, and it was kind of like the AR that I had, and I got it in the '90s. And what happened was in the early 2000s, this is over 20 years ago, in the early 2000s, dudes were, you know, cutting off the carry handles, putting in stuff at the top to mount red dots and all this other stuff. And what I started, and I almost cut a carry handle off an H bar and tried to make it more modern so I could kind of keep up with the trends and keep up with the training. But then I realized it's like this fucking H bar, it's I'm gonna cut this carry handle off and it's gonna, but I wasn't that worried about that. But I'm still, it's got this crazy heavy barrel on it. Doesn't even have a bayonet lug, and that was, you got to realize back then, before all these retro guns became popular. Now, like you had pre-ban and post-ban guns, and nobody wanted these. Like if you had a gun without a bayonet lug on it, it was like having a rifle with one testicle. People were like, "Ew, I don't fucking want that." Hey, oh, it has no muzzle device and it doesn't have a bayonet lug on it. It's like that's a faggot gun. That's one of those band guns. Nobody, and they were, nobody wanted them, and people would convert them and do all this shit, and it was just like, well, shit. When I was doing this, you couldn't even convert them, and it was just like I just had to get out of it, and I'm kind of back on the A2 thing because the Springfield's got the A2 retro, and I've kind of started opening my mind. I've realized I've got to start putting some of these ARs into the reference collection while I can get them. We've got the modern, we've got the A4, we've got an A1. Um, is that right? Yeah, we got an A4. We got the FN A4, the big one, the 20-inch. We've got the SP1 M16A1 triangular handguard thing. And I realized I want to get an A2. I probably want to get maybe what is it, the Gordon rifle, or maybe like a Sante Raid rifle, like one of those Gordon rifle Sante Raid, or what maybe they call them, what's the from that movie, what's the movie with, and I never saw the movie with Blood Diamond. Was that the movie? It had the one actor from Titanic in it. They call it there's some carbine that the kid had in that movie that kid people clone, and they call it the Blood Diamond rifle. Does that make any
I
sense to
haven't
you?
I haven't seen that, but just hazarding a guess, I would say you're probably referring to the CAR. The military designator for it would have been the XM15. So it would have had the 16-inch carbine length barrel with the triangular gas block, carry handle, but the shorty clamshell handguard with the long flash hider on it, the long
Okay.
slotted flash hider. Does that, and the collapsible stock, does that sound
Yeah, I
correct to
think
you?
it might have been painted tiger stripe or something, spray painted, but yeah, that sounds like
Yep,
kind of the
that's
gun.
a CAR 15 is what you're looking for there then.
And so, it's like, and then like Springfield came out with these SA whatever guns, and I don't know what to think about them. But it's like I'm looking around and I'm like, well, should I get? I don't want to know if I want a Springfield. Shouldn't Then the H&R PSA has the H&R line, and I like that. The guy that runs H&R for PSA, I respect him because I remember his God, his name escapes me. Now that we're on a podcast, I can't remember it. Um, I want to say almost like I say Deepak Chopra, but that's not his name. Um, Nodak Spud. Deepak Chopra, Nodak Spud. Nodak Spud. Hey, look, it's been a while.
There's a
Uh,
reach.
yeah. So, but just here's a glimpse of how my mind works. So, this Nodak Spud guy. I mean, I really, because I've seen him do these these repop clones, and he was custom making small runs, and he has such credibility to me, and I'm not a cloner. It's like, but if he's behind these H&Rs with PSA, I might consider them. But the reality is right now, I don't think any of these Colt A2s are that expensive. They're, you know what I mean? They're not. Um, I can probably get one for just a little bit more money, and long term, it's probably going to be worth more.
Mhm.
So, that's kind of my debate on the A2. That's why I'm asking because I need help with these. Um, because I can't like a lot of this stuff. Like I shoot guns, these AR, all these variations of the ARs. I just get kind of like some of it's a bit overwhelming. The fact that I even know that the difference between a rear sight on an A1 and the rear sight on an A2 for me is such like me coming really up in my game. In this because it like because to me a lot of this stuff is you get a lot of these dudes that this is just like 1911s, this is just like H&Ks, this is just like a lot of these guns. These dudes they know everything they can know about every little mark or part or detail or stamping on a gun, but none of these fuckers can shoot their way out of a paper bag. And so it's like I kind of like, I'm like whatever, it's not my bag. Just like I'd rather have you tell me you're like Marky, you buy this one. I'm like, okay, we'll just buy that one. So just put it in the fucking armory. I don't care. So I get it off the list. So
Well,
you're
on that parts kit one you sent me, I did send you a rather colorful opinion on what to do with that
oh,
one.
I sent some. I found a Colt parts upper, and I'm like, "Wait, look at this!" And it's like something didn't look right to me on it. The furniture on the fore end doesn't look right to me, and I'm like, it doesn't look like an A2 to me. And actually, you know what? Stall for me because I need to. This is another thing that confused the hell out of me. Let's see if I can find. Let me get onto Gunbroker. Um, there's a what's it called? A company and has all these pre-bands. I mean, all this cool. There's a company that I guess made. Um, there's a company that made Colt uppers or made, and it was called what's it called? And some of these are on the internet. And well, I guess it's gone. Like, is it
I
maybe
just sent you a link
Delco?
to it.
Is it Delco or something or? No, I'm looking at something else. It's not the
Oh,
the
okay.
link. I'm looking at the link, but the maybe let's see who made this. This is an all Colt C marked whatever. It's not this one, but I can't remember what it is. But there's apparently I didn't know this. There's companies besides Colt that made AR uppers or M16 uppers.
Hmm.
Like I don't know, in the 70s and 80s or something. It's like, well, shit, I don't know. Okay. And like, I don't know. It's like, is that what I can't, let's just say it's Delco. I don't remember what it's called, but like, would it be worth having one of those or should I get a real Colt? Or, I'd asked you about, because I always thought Rock River Arms was supposed to be somewhat decent, but, some people kind of say Rock River Arms is not good. I heard Rock River Arms makes an A2.
Yep. I actually found they're out of stock. They're not in current production, so you'd have to find either an old new stock or one on the used market. But it's stock number AR 1280, and it's a straight up A2
Let's take a
without all the
look.
fancy stuff. I've had a couple Rock Rivers. I would say that they're better than the bargain brands like PSA. Not as good as a Daniel Defense, but in my
Well,
opinion, better than a Colt or, say the old Bushmasters.
I mean, but does Daniel Defense make a straight up A2 rifle?
No, no. I'm
I didn't
I'm
think
just talking
so.
as far as quality of the rifle itself.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. An like, I mean, like, I'm sure I didn't even look. Like, I'm sure Wilson Comet doesn't make an A2.
No.
Like, I mean, yeah. So I don't know. Apparently, Rock River they want 929. So, like, I mean, again, they're out of stock. Maybe they don't make them. But I like the Springfield Armory A2 guns are what $1,100,
Hmm.
$1,200. It's like, well,
Yeah.
I mean, would a Rock River be better
In
for
my
for
opinion, yes.
for 929? It's like, yeah, probably. Um,
Yeah.
okay. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm kind of looking at those, and I'm on the A2 kick right now because it's like I'm realizing I'm scrambling. It's like we need to get one before they dry up and they get really stupid expensive. And I don't want an H bar. I don't, and like I see H bars everywhere, but I don't want an H bar. I want a
Yeah.
real rifle. I don't want a Camp Perry thing that's just retarded heavy on the front end. It's like that just
Oh, and they
sucks.
are too.
Oh, dude, you want it? I'll tell you what. If you've ever seen these, so I knew a guy. This guy was a federal employee. I'm not going to say much, but he had in the this was in the maybe it was in the 2000s. He bought this gun, and I could swear it was made by Bushmaster, so I could be wrong. But it was basically an A2 gun, and it had I think I said a fixed carry handle, an A2 gun with full length A2 stock and the A2 type clamshell handguard. But under under the handguard and in the buttstock, it had lead weights. It had lead under the handguard. It had lead, I think, in the buttstock, and I think it might have had a lead in the pistol grip. I can't remember how much this gun weighed, but this gun made a Colt H bar seem like an A1. This thing was stupid heavy, and it was made for one thing and one thing only: to shoot at Camp Perry. And I don't know how you got away with shooting this gun at Camp Perry because it weighed a metric shit ton, and like there's always some dumb gun out there that
Mhm.
nobody wants. So if any of you out there have one of those, maybe other companies made them too. I'm sure Bushmaster wasn't the only one. Send me a picture or a link at podcast@john1911.com. I'll put it in the comments section, or I'll try to find a copy of one myself. So can I kind of foist this A2 project kind of on you a little bit?
Oh yeah, that's right up my alley.
Okay. Because, well, the thing is, because one of the other thing is like, okay, that parts kit that I sent you, and you're like, this thing sucks. It's like, this is fucked up and whatever. It's like, I'm looking at this and it's like, okay, I have to buy a lower. And it's like, okay, well, what is an A2 lower? I know what an A2 buttstock is, but what's an A2 lower? And, okay, is it some fencing, partial fencing, no fencing? And then it's got trying to get the finish to match. It's going to look like a put together. It's like, oh god, I hate all this. I just hate it. I mean, I just can't tell you how much I hate this. I just be like, just find the goddamn gun so we can buy it. Just
I'll just find you a whole gun.
if you can. I mean, I don't want to spend. There's one on Gunbroker for like $2,500. I'm not going to spend $2,500 on an A2. Um,
No.
or 20. Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
And I
Right.
can't imagine it's going to bring that.
Yeah, well, people asking them for, because what's going to happen is these real Colts, you know how it is. It's just like the 1911 guys. If it's not a Colt, it's a copy.
Yeah,
Or if
exactly.
it's not or if it's, like we had a guy roll in, the Tisas Raider is broken, right?
Mhm.
And they still haven't sent us a call tag on that, by the way. That's actually gun is sitting over at Shooters. And because everyone's like, oh no, we got to RMA it and get a call tag, and they have not sent the call tag, and it's so anyway, nothing's happening with that. But I can't remember. I can't remember what the hell I was saying. So, it just my mind just had a brain fart. So, what was I even talking about? Oh no! Well, we had a guy rolling in the comments on the. It was kind of funny, but he's being a jerk on the Tisas of the Broken Raider, and he goes, "Yeah, your gun's broken. It should be in 45." Because the one we have is a 9mm. He's one of those 45 guys, and like honestly, the way he said it, it was kind of funny, but I couldn't really compliment him because you knew he's being a dick and he's about to get banned. But it was just like, okay, yeah. I mean, I actually didn't see that. He's like, yeah, there's another problem with your gun. It's not in 45. And I was like, oh fuck. Okay, you got me. You got me, dude. You got me. So, um, So let me tell you about what's been going on at the John 1911 range. Have I ever told you about our safe guy?
Mm-mm.
Excuse me, taking a drink. Our safe guy, my nickname for him is General Longstreet. And because he kind of reminds me of General Longstreet from the Civil War. And I call him Old Pete. And he kind of talks like this. And he's been holding, like we have these safes that we've pulled out of the old office that we had to put in the storage. Like it's like the government's black. You probably don't remember this. You've never seen it. The black safe with it's a black safe with this great seal of the United States on it and gold leaf, and it's from the post office and whatever. And the historical society wanted it, but they didn't have room, so we were able to buy it and some other safes. Well, he's been holding. This guy does safes for us. We've done multiple vault doors from him through the years. We've done safes installs, moving stuff. He's old General Longstreet is our guy, and so it's like, hey, we're about ready for some. I want to put a couple safes out there at the range, like just be able to lock some stuff up. So these little portable safes are going to be perfect out there. So I call him up and I'm like, hey Pete, we're about ready. I need to coordinate with some stuff because everybody's backing their trucks in, and I'm like, I just want to give you maybe next week we can get you in there, and I said straight in, ground level, loading dock doors. You can use your lift gates, jack the stuff in, pallet jack the stuff in. It's like no stairs, no nothing. It's easy as can be. He's like, great. So he calls me and he's like, well, I was looking at the schedule, Marky, and I was wondering if maybe we could we can run the cavalry the safes by you tomorrow. And I'm like, well, yeah, sure, Pete, or whatever, like maybe in a couple days. What are you thinking? He's like, well, I'm not thinking early, so, I'll let you know. And I'm like, okay, Pete. And he goes, I'll let you know by the end of the day. So, end of the day comes, he doesn't call. It's like, fine, the next day he's going to, it's not going to be early. And I know how Pete is. I've known old General Longstreet for a long time. And I'm like, not early for him is probably like 11 o'clock in the morning. And so I'm like, or maybe he's thinking because, the range is kind of not centrally located, it's not in the city. Maybe he'll hit us at the end of the day and then he'll loop back home because old Pete has to drive hundreds of miles a day. I mean, old Pete, General Longstreet, probably does safes and vaults for 4 cities. And I get a phone rings the next morning at 7:25 in the morning. And I go, I see it's old General Longstreet. I'm like, hey Pete. He's like, hey Marky, we're probably gonna be at your property in about 50 minutes. I'm like, Pete, this is at 7:25 in the morning. I'm like, Pete, I'm an hour and a half away from the range. I thought you said it wasn't going to be early. And he goes, well, we've already done one. I'm like, oh, shit. So I had to go flying out of the building, go fucking running out there. And he, of course, beat me out there. And he can get into the building. And the thing is, I wanted him to come in a different way because I had the loading docks blocked with other equipment, shipping containers, and but I wanted to get out there and move a trailer so he could come in through the front door because these are just they're like man portable safes. It's nothing giant, so he can get through normal doorways. And he beat me out there, and I pull up, and I'm like, he has got his truck tucked in through one of these loading docks, and I'm like, oh fuck, because I was like, I was sweating bullets driving out there because it's been so wet here in Ohio that I'm like, if I don't get that trailer moved, I don't know how he's can't run that thing in the mud. He's not going to be able to get the truck close enough to the thing. And I was like, I don't know what he's going to be doing. And I was going to be pissed off waiting for me. So nope, they'd gotten into the building. They had somehow tucked their giant ass truck in sideways into one of these loading docks and had the big fancy government safe with the gold leaf put where we needed it. And they're just sitting there, and he's like, "Well, where do you want the other one?" And so, well, General, just put it here. So, and it was just like this giant, like everything's been one giant drama after another. So that was kind of a crazy day, and then I was actually had to drive out there twice that day, and see what else. Oh, we got bad news that we won't get septic in. They're not going to let us dig the septic until at least June because it's so wet. Like the tank is in the ground, but they need to dig the leach lines, and they
Mhm.
have to lay it out, and it's got to be inspected by the county. And so it's going to be so wet for whatever so long. And then they're like, well, we're not going to probably get you till June because it's been so wet and everything's, whatever. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, what are we going to do in a couple weeks? He's like, well, the woman at the county, she's going to be out of town for like the last week. So it's like first couple weeks of May are too wet. Third week of May, uh, uh, the first couple weeks, then it's like the final week of May, she is going to be out of town. And so we're going to have to wait until June. And I'm like, so we don't have toilets out there. We don't have running water. I mean, I can run a little water because we got a tank in the ground, but we can't really put real water in it because it won't go anywhere. And it's just like one thing after another after another. It's like we haven't had this much rain on that property since when I did the initial construction building those rifle ranges. It was so wet that year. It was a record setting year, and I remember it caused all kinds of hell because we had to hire this giant D8 bulldozer to come out and do all that work. And that D8, if it's not dry, dude, that D8 will sink to China. And it put us back months and months. It just rained and rained and rained. And it's like, that's what we're in this year. So, yeah. So we got, I was out there till 3 o'clock in the morning last night sealing floors.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, because we're finishing up sealing the floors because I had the last 25% to do because on Tuesday we've got the next round of we had to hire a special crew to come in and they have to assemble a bunch of stuff. So, and I knew that the stuff has to cure. So I was out there. That's why I was out looking for the Aurora Borealis thing or the Northern Lights, whatever you call it, because I was
Yeah.
at the range that's all I did all last night. I was out there from whatever time until I was out there till 3. Didn't get to bed till 4. So,
I sealed a concrete floor once, and I'll probably never do it again. The race shop we were doing it in didn't have very good ventilation, and we got about half done and figured out we couldn't walk a straight line if we had a rope tied to our ass and was pulling us down the straight line because we got higher than kites because there was no ventilation.
yeah. Confession time. What I use to seal, I don't use the heavy duty stuff. I use the water based sealant on cement. I realize that there's disadvantages, but I just use it to keep the dust, really just to lock the dust down. So I'm
Yeah,
not looking for like this real fancy looking finish or like if there's like a little bit of whatever on the cement and it just gets sealed into the floor, I'm like, fuck it, I don't care. Like I'll
yeah.
sweep it, I'll mop it, run the fans on a section and then seal it, but it's water based and ventilate. But it you'll see it. It's not like anything like nobody would pay me to seal the way I seal floor. Nobody would pay me for this. This is strictly utilitarian. I guarantee whatever you did is way nicer than what I do.
Well, the first half was nice, but I don't think anybody would ever hire us after they saw the second half.
Oh yeah,
We'll just
it's
say the longer we were in the unventilated space, the quality of the craftsmanship went way down.
Yeah. So was it like some kind of like pattern or color or texture you were going for, or did you have to
No,
put like?
it was just a gray sealer, but it was, I don't know what the chemicals were. Uh, but boy, I'll tell you what, it starts burning your nose after a while, then it burns your eyes, and if you're not well ventilated, you wind up you get higher than a kite, and you get one hell of a headache for about 3 days.
Oh yeah, it doesn't sound good at all. So
But it was a lot of fun throwing the little black sprinkles on it after about halfway done, though.
okay, so yeah, you see, like you know, I'm not even putting stuff in this like because it could get a little slick. Um, but yeah, I'm not doing that. Like, I mean, there's enough dirt on the floor. I'm like, yeah, that you'll get your traction from that. It's like, it's fine. It's just water based. It ain't that thick. So, we'll see. We'll see how it holds up. They'll probably in areas like water will drip off like the tractor, and like since it's water based, if it sits on it, it'll probably make it come up. You know what I mean? Like it won't be
Hmm.
impervious to water. Standing water on this the kind of sealer that I use is really meant to be used like in an interior. Like I would use it in an arms room, or use it in like on a foundation floor, or somewhere where there's an interior cement and there's no weather and there's just light traffic on it. So we'll see how this holds up, but it'll get me through at least the first year or two. If we have to come back in and do something crazy, then that's fine. So
Yeah.
that is what it is. So hey, I wanted, since you were talking about fishing, did you see an article? You probably had a chance to look at it. There's an article, I didn't realize that the catfish is an invasive species. Have you heard about this?
I haven't heard about this, but I suppose it would depend on, which species of catfish and what water you're talking about.
So there's an article that says apex predator river monsters that strangled the U.S. waterways is spreading. So this is kind of written a little bit hyperbolic. So a river monster that can reach 120 pounds in anything nearby is tightening its chokehold on America's waterways and has now crossed the Canadian border. The flathead catfish has gained thousands of fans in the shape of noodlers who try to wrestle the giant creatures out of the river with their bare hands. But conservationists are sounding the alarm about the unstoppable march across the country from the original habitat of the Gulf of Mexico basin. Let me see here. So I guess they call it they call it the
Flatheads.
flathead catfish. So is the flathead catfish not the same catfish? Oh, look, they're showing a picture of a girl in a bikini top with a giant catfish over her
Yep,
shoulders.
probably Hannah Barron.
Um,
Brunette,
uh,
probably 22, 23, pretty cute. Probably in a bikini.
the I'm about to say that you're obviously reading my screen, or they all
No, I
probably
just know
look.
of her.
They probably all look like that. She
No,
kind of.
she makes a living off of making noodling videos in a bikini, and
Now I have to tell you, making the just sentence, making a living off the noodling videos in a bikini sounds like something completely different than fishing. Okay, I'm just saying this is like behind the green door kind of thing, like Red Shoe Diaries. Ooh, she's noodling. It's like what the hell? So so the only so wait a minute. Oh wait a minute. Are you telling me that now that there's OnlyFans fishing noodlers now? Does she
no,
have an
it's not an
OnlyFans?
OnlyFans. It's TikTok and stuff like that. Because they monetize the platforms, so uh, she's all over Facebook and such. In the fishing community, she's fairly famous, and it's
Yeah.
it's kind of like some of the women race car drivers. There's all kinds of hillbillies noodling. I think I caught my first flathead noodling when I was like 12. It's nothing new, but hot chick in a bikini doing it, and all of a sudden, you'll get clicks and hits and such as that.
So, but this is
Uh,
interesting. So these flathead fish, quote, like they're saying this, they were detected in California in 1962, Virginia in 1965, and the Potomac in D.C. in 2003. It's like there were no flathead catfish. You're telling me there were no flathead catfish in the Potomac River when I was in Washington, D.C. in the 80s? It's like,
may not have
really?
been, but they would have had to have come from another. I mean, they've been in the Midwest river systems, forever. Right here in the Missouri River, I mean, in the Mississippi River, also I've fished for them. I've caught a metric fuck ton of flatheads. They're nothing special. They're just one of the three species of catfish that, up until today, I had always, you know, thought of them as the three native species of catfish to North America, because they're widespread. I just assumed that there'd probably be some states they wouldn't be in because they just couldn't physically get there without being transplanted by a human. Uh, but they're everywhere around here. I mean, people fish for them all the time.
So the article says they get heavier the longer they are established, with a 66-pound example breaking the state record in Pennsylvania June of last year.
Yeah, that's an okay fish.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, 66 doesn't seem like it's that. I mean, that's a big fish, but it's, fish can live for 20 years, grow to 5 feet, weigh 120 pounds, and lay around 10,000 eggs at a time. So do these things eat Asian carp?
Yep. The thing with a flathead is they are the out of the three catfish species, they predominantly feed on live fish. So when we fish for them, we use goldfish, whole bluegill, uh, various types of carp that are alive. They generally won't eat dead fish or cut bait, as we call it, like
Oh,
channel cats and blues do.
okay. Like
They're
they're
fun to
like
catch.
Kant's quote, listen to this sentence. Conservationists in Georgia caught and removed 64,000 in 9 years after they established themselves in the state's Satilla River, but admit they're fighting a losing battle. And it's like there's not supposed to be catfish in a river in Georgia since when? Like I
I
just like this whole article is just bizarre to me.
And I can tell you this I haven't read the article, but it's probably coming from one of two angles. Either tree hugging conservationists that anything that, wasn't here when the pilgrims landed is an invasive species and they're all crazy anyway, or what I refer to as the bass and walleye fags. And what that simply is a flathead's a predator fish. So a largemouth bass swims in front of it, they're going to eat it for lunch. The problem becomes these guys with the $80,000 sparkly glitter boats that fish bass tournaments think that any other fish is a garbage fish, especially a fish that would eat their pretty little bass.
Oh.
They are out of all the fishermen, the bass and the walleye guys, not as much the walleye guys, because where they fish, there's it's a little different world because people eat walleye, they keep them. The bass fishermen, you catch a 4 pound bass and show up at the fish cleaning station, and there could be 50 tournament fishermen there at a bass tournament, and they see that and they'll all collectively at the same time go, "Oh," because you killed one of their precious bass that they could have stuck a hook in and weighed in at a tournament.
Hmm.
The flathead catfish, it's native to America. Uh, they're just like any other fish. They're just like the Asian carp. Now, it's not native to America. You get a breeding population established in a river system, it's eventually going to spread to every bit of water it can get to.
That
Uh,
Asian carp is ridiculous. Those are
oh
the fish
yeah,
that jump out of the
that's
water,
what's going to
right?
ruin the fisheries. Now, I hear tell that Asian carp trap shooting can be quite a hoot.
Oh, I'd be down for that.
Oh, it's a blast. You just sit
I
on the back
heard.
of a boat up the Missouri River at about 10 mile an hour, and when they jump up in the air, they'll jump 6, 8 foot in the air. Sometimes you blast them with a shotgun. But if
Hmm.
you don't yell pull before you shoot, then you don't get a point for it.
Oh, okay. Apparently, like around 6 people a year, die from drowning from noodling.
Well, I would buy that, but not because the fish overpowered them, and you can only noodle catfish for it's a very short season, because what they're basically doing is they're pulling spawning females off the spawning beds. So what they do, and a lot, and like especially down south, like it's real big in Oklahoma, they'll actually sink like metal tubes or 55-gallon barrels into the shallows where flatheads like to nest. The females go in there, lay their eggs, and sit on the nests. Well, they GPS mark right where they drop the barrel. It's right under that cottonwood tree in 8 foot of water. And then they dive under and basically get the fish to bite their arm, and they grab hold of it and pull it out. And more often than not, they kill the fish. I'm not a
Oh,
fan of
really?
noodling. Yeah, I'm not a fan of noodling because,
Oh, think I might have
you're
lost you there for a
pulling
second.
basically a brooding female off a nest, and it's not really sportsmanlike. Uh, if you sink a tube, and from this period of time to this period of time, there's a 99% chance there's going to be a big female flathead in there sitting on a nest, and you just go down and, yep, there it is, and you grab it. And, ooh, look at me, I got a 50-pound flathead. You know, if
Hmm.
I if I had the body in a bikini, evidently you can make money doing it now on TikTok.
So
But
she does. So does. What's her name? Because I'm gonna have to. We've referenced her too much. I'm gonna have to put a picture of her in the comment section. What's that chick's name?
Hannah Barron, B as in boy, Arron.
Hannah Barron.
Yep.
All right. I'll find
And
her.
she
It
she
probably won't be
does some
that hard.
she does some other outdoors related videos and photos and stuff that she's easy to find.
Yeah, so just type in Hannah Barron OnlyFans, and she'll come right up,
Oh,
right?
you don't even need the OnlyFans, just Hannah Barron. Click
I'm just
images.
kidding.
You'll see
I'm
you'll see
just
more
kidding.
fish in bikinis than you ever thought possible.
I'm just kidding. Hey, there's
But if she
a
did
what
have an
is it?
OnlyFans, I'd be a subscriber because she is pretty cute.
Now stop. Um, there's a story. This one got by me, and let me see. Here we go. Apparently, the the Army or the U.S. military, the Army has put out an RFP for what I would call an EL. Well, no, actually, they're calling it that. They're calling it an extreme long range sniper rifle, ELR shooting. They are looking for a rifle. They haven't specified caliber. It's probably going to be 277 Fury, but or it could be a Norma. It could be a Norma, but they're looking for a rifle that delivers precise fire at up to 2,500 meters, which is 2,730 yards, or just over a mile and a half. And it's like, I heard Barrett might be in it, trying to do something with their, is it MRAD? Is that what they call it? Is that the
Hmm.
Barrett MRAD?
Yeah.
But I think it's a bigger one. Let's see here. This article says, to give an example, so Carlos Hathcock, when he set his distance record with he took a 50 BMG, he somehow bolted a scope to a 50 BMG and like took a single shot, and he had pre-zeroed the gun, an impact zone, and he shot this NVA or Viet Cong dude at 2,500 yards, and he
Yep.
basically lobbed that thing. And apparently the Army is now looking for a sniper rifle for accurate shots out to 2,500 meters, 2,730 yards. And it's like, oh God, I'm like, it'd be curious to see what it is. Be curious to see what kind of MOA they're trying to go for.
Yeah. What would be the accuracy requirements on that?
I don't have it. Let me see here. Looking through. Duh, duh, duh. I think today the Marine Corps SOCOM. Uh, they're currently they're running 300 Norma Magnum, 338 Norma Magnum, reach up to 1,600 yards. I remember there's a guy I know, and he was involved in the RFPs at. He's a pretty. If you're a precision people, like if you're in the industry, people know this person is. They other like if you're just like a gun guy, you're not going to know this guy is. He builds stuff and does stuff for companies, and I've known him for a long time. And I actually was shooting at a range, and I ran into him, and I knew he was working. I think at the time he was working on. I think the Army had an RFP out for a new sniper rifle. I think they ended up canceling it, and he had gone out to Crane Naval Surface Warfare Center um, to do some stuff. And he came. I was like, he couldn't really talk about too much, and they hadn't made a selection. They hadn't done a down select yet. But it he goes, it looked, because I was like, yeah, it's going to be 338 Lapua, right? 338 Lapua Magnum. And he goes, to be honest with you, it looks like it's going to be 338 Norma Magnum. And I remember saying that was the first time I'd ever heard of 338 Norma Magnum. And I was like, what the hell is 338 Norma Magnum? I was like, what? I don't know what that is. It's not Lapua? He's like, no, it's Norma. And I'm
Hmm.
like, okay. So, like, not that I'd be the person that would know like every new caliber, but it's going to be, I don't know, we may all have to start, you know, I mean, it's the thing is what it is there comes a point, like when the Army does something, a lot of it tends to go downstream to the civilian market. And, it's like, okay, how long until SWAT teams start showing up with 277 Fury ELR sniper rifles that they have to qualify with? And it's like, it's like, where are they going to qualify? You know what I mean? It's like at some point, if the Army does this, you're going to start to see other organizations, since it's a written skill, and it's a capability that they can encapsulate and quantify and qualify for. You'll see other groups do that, and it's like now we're all going to have to listen to the ELR gun people now, and it's like, okay, it's like the Mark, I don't know, the M7, I don't know, the M33 277 Fury ELR sniper rifle, and it's just like part of me is just like, oh, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
like there's coming a point where I'm like, I'm losing interest to me, like, personally, about 1,700 yards is probably like my personal interest. I can stretch it out to maybe 2,000, but it's like beyond that, to me, it's getting to be like, and even then, like, it's like, come on. It's like, for me, it's just like, I don't know. It's just too much. I don't know if they can get it to hold some kind of, like, I don't know, because again, you asked the question, what would be the accuracy standard for a 2,500 yard or 2,700 a 2,500 meter, which would be 2,730 yard sniper rifle. A one MOA gun. That's a 27-inch group, right?
Hmm.
Well, no, it's actually, well, hold
No, it'd
on.
be more.
Be more, because let me do. Hold on. It's one. Hold on.
1.034, isn't it?
It's 1.047. Hold on.
047, yeah.
1.047 times. It'd be a 28. Am I doing that right? Am I putting enough zeros at 28 inch, 28 and a quarter inch? One MOA is 28.26 inches. Well,
Yeah.
actually 28.269, so it actually be 28.267 realistically. You could round it up. But it's like a 28-inch group at 2,700 meters.
Okay, so what's the intended use?
Well, I guess you could kind of get a 28-inch group. I guess you could theoretically lay that across a person. I mean, you got a decent chance of, I mean, it's got to be at that range, it's got to be anti-personnel. I mean, it's not going to be anti-material. I mean, they may try to do an anti-material round and do an anti-material, like some kind of raw thing or whatever, but it's like, I mean, I don't know, like, I don't know, like, I guess I could see, Carlos Hathcock getting within 2,700 yards of a Chinese communication node, and he's lobbing rounds at 2,700 yards at it, and take it offline. But part of me is like, wouldn't it just be better to give the GPS coordinates and send a piece of artillery at it? I mean,
Yeah.
unless you're looking at a situation where you're fighting such a near peer adversary that you don't have those assets available. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like a lot of people don't understand. Like the F-117 stealth fighter was not a fighter. Okay, the F-117 stealth fighter was really a F-8 F-117. It was an attack bomber, an attack aircraft. And what this aircraft was supposed to do is go in and ahead of everybody else and start taking out, air defense radars. And people are like, that makes sense. But also, what it was supposed to do, it was supposed to go into behind enemy lines first. Also, take out if they could identify uh, command and communications nodes, but also, really most importantly, go after AWACS aircraft. Like if it could go in and kill, like could shoot in behind enemy lines very early before everybody else starts coming across the regular aircraft. And that with radar and radiation detection, they can find where the what they call it, the AN-50, is that the Russian AWACS airplane?
Hmm. Yeah.
Go in after those and take those things out. That's literally what they're supposed to do. So you could maybe make some weird argument, maybe like on some island, and if the Chinese are there and a Marine and a rifle. But I mean, even then, it's like I don't know how effective that would. I mean, I don't know what I'm creating such a contrived use for this. I don't know. I mean, you know where this could come in handy, honestly, in urban warfare. Like if we end up fighting in cities,
Taking
like
out technicals.
well, or like like any large, like or like a lot of people don't want to really admit this, but like Chris Kyle was able to get so many targets and at such extended ranges. If the idea that you really can't see somebody, it's like, well, the argument against the M7 and the 277 Fury is the idea of, well, you're really only engaging people. The average engagement is like 300 yards. Okay, and then there's body armor, and it's like, okay, well, the Russian armor and Chinese armor, that's okay. But the reality is, in urban environments, you get such long shots because you've got these long roads and these long boulevards, and you've got even like in some bullshit city like Baghdad, you've got 5, 8, 9, 10-story buildings. You can see pretty far, and there's so many people that you get all these targets of opportunity. You can make an argument that a 2,700-yard rifle could come in very handy in the Battle of Beirut 2027.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. I'm just, part of me's just like, ugh.
It's almost like we're trying to find a problem to fit a solution.
I don't know if I'm not,
That's what it feels like to me.
you know,
Obviously, they've got some purpose in mind because they're spending some money at least on the research end of it. I'm no expert, but I mean, there's just nothing that's really popping up that it's like, do we need a minute of angle, you know, rifle for a 2,700-yard shot?
well, you know what? I look at it like this, okay? Like, and I'm going to kick a lot of the listeners on this one. I really am, and I don't mean to, but we all have to be careful. And as I get older and, I try to remember, when people make predictions or people make judgments, it's, a lot of people tend to go through life and they don't really look back and keep score and think about if they were right or they were wrong. And a perfect example of this is the F-35. A lot of people for a long time, all they did was bitch and moan about the F-35, how it can't dogfight, it can't do this, it can't do that, and all the other kind of crazy shit. And all these people that don't fly and don't know how to do anything, but they can have an opinion because they can look at an F-14 and they can look at an F-16 and they can look at the Top Gun movie and they see some of the information about the F-35 and you could be like, this is bullshit. And, you know, the people who are in it see where the future's going and where they're falling behind and they're trying to get ahead of the, fight the future war, not the past war.
Mm.
And the F-35, I think, is being vindicated as being a very effective attack aircraft, and a very effective combat aircraft. And a lot of people would have said this thing is a disaster. But the thing is, what people don't remember is I remember when the F-16, people hated that goddamn aircraft. All this crazy fly-by-wire stuff. And it was so complicated. Why are you computerizing everything? And I remember dudes were dying because the plane was not stable and like one little short and it would lose control. And people hate, I mean, like, and there, I remember 60 Minute, I remember this 60 Minute, I remember this as clear as I was a kid. And 60 Minutes did this story on the F-16, and it was a hit piece on how terrible it was. And they were talking to this woman. She's a grieving widow, and she was trying to sue the federal government. She tried to sue Secretary of Defense and the Air Force for killing her husband because her husband died in Korea in an F-16. And what happened was he's flying in South Korea and he went into some clouds. He's in full afterburn, and he's in these clouds, and he can't tell which way is up because he's accelerating, and he's back in his seat. And they figured this out because they looked at the flight data recorder, and he had two horizon indicators. This whole airplane is electronic and wires. He had two horizon indicators. One said he was right side up, and one said the exact opposite, that he was upside down. Because it's all this electronic shit. And he's like, he's in full afterburn, and he's like, which way is up? And so he picks away and he pulls up, and he ends up going full afterburn straight down into a side of a mountain in South Korea. And when they went to the wreckage, she got on national television, and the following sentence, you can go back and find this. She said, I buried a scalp. She says all they were able to recover was a part of the top of his head. And 60 Minutes, the F-16 and all the problems. And what it was is they figured out that it was, pilots are flying these airplanes turning and burning and doing all this, and all these wires are rubbing on these screws and they're shorting out. And it was causing all these problems. And they like, oh, it's not going to short out. We've got it braced or whatever. But it was shorting out, and it was causing all these accidents and problems, these crazy problems, because it's electronic. You can't even, like with hydraulics, kind of feel your way through the problems. And they hated the F-16. People thought it was a death trap, and it was overly complicated and too cute by half. The same people a few years ago were shitting on the F-35, and they love the F-16. You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I
And
lost you,
that's
didn't I?
that's where I said, on the comment on the rifle. I can't think of a reason, but obviously they have thought of a reason because they're throwing money at it. So they have some type of mission in mind for this particular rifle or some type of goal. Just because I can't think of a good use doesn't mean they don't have one.
I remember going through some of the stuff, like the Department of Defense is they're planning on future wars, and there were two things that they were concerned about, as far as like the infantry or an army. They were trying to figure out how to fight a future conflict in the Pacific with a rising China, and China is much more powerful now than it was. And the other thing was, they were looking at the future, and they were concerned that in the future, an American army, was probably going to have to fight an enemy in a mega city. Because they were like, if you look at the world's population, the percentage of the world's population that lives either in a city or within like the suburbs or megapolis of a city, like the amount of people, like if you've ever seen what is it, like there's a graphic that shows the amount of people that live in like Los Angeles County. Okay, like a mega city for the military is concerned. Think of like Los Angeles County, the entire county. It's just built up. It's just people, houses and people and houses and people and offices and houses and people. And they're like, the amount of people that live here equals, and they showed like 11 states, like all
Hmm.
these states, and it's like the same amount of people live in these states that live in this one county. And that's the kind of stuff that the Department of Defense was kind of like, we got to be prepared to be able to function. And we've had a military that was set to fight the Fulda Gap, and fight in Western Europe. And now all of a sudden we're finding ourselves in a lot of this urban warfare and special forces and all this other kind of this asymmetrical wars in the Middle East, which they didn't plan for. And now they're like, well, fuck, we could end up having to fight. What if we have to fight, in a big urban, like a giant urban, modern urban city, and like that could happen now. You see, NATO countries are actually issuing proclamations, and they're saying, France has issued it. I think Britain just last week they've allowed the Ukrainians to use their weapons to launch into Russia, but they've come out and said, some NATO members, not NATO, but France in particular, has said, if Kiev gets over, if the Ukrainian front lines collapse and it looks like the Russians are going to run into Kiev, that some Western militaries, France in particular, we'll see who else, they're going to run into Ukraine to try to keep the Russians out of these cities, at least out of Kiev. And it's like all of a sudden, boom, you're in a big ass city.
Yep.
2,700 yard shots. It's like, oof. Anyway, that was a fun conversation. Okay. Anything else you want to cover that's fun or interesting, or?
I don't know. Did you want to talk a little bit about the two guys in the Grand Turks that got caught with the ammunition in their luggage as they were leaving?
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, go ahead. I mean, I've talked enough. Go ahead, and do you have? Let me find. I've got it here. Do you have any update on what's going on with that?
As far as I know, they're still basically stuck in a one-bedroom Airbnb, uh, basically
They're
on
not even in
house
jail.
arrest. Well, it's house arrest. They've snatched their passports. They can't leave the house. Waiting on the court proceedings.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, is 12 years in Turks and Caicos that bad? It's not that big of an island.
Probably in their prison system. I'm thinking that's probably not a lot of fun. Their inmates probably don't enjoy all the rights that American inmates have.
I've been to Turks and Caicos. Their prison, I think, is probably out by the airport. Like, it just can't be that big.
Yeah.
Like, it just can't be. I mean, like, I'm gonna have to Google that. Like, how big is the? So anyway, so American men facing 12 years in Turks and Caicos prison speak from Airbnb. They're sharing to say they're quote absolutely terrified of being locked up. What did they do exactly? Okay, two American men facing 12 years in TNC prison for accidentally bringing ammunition in their luggage have shared their terror at the prospect of jail. Ryan Wilson, 40, and Brian Hegrich, 39. So are these guys together, or is it just two separate incidents?
I believe it was two families on vacation, but I could be wrong on that part of it.
Both
But
fathers
they
of
got
two.
caught on the way out of Turks.
Well, they probably got extra scrutiny because they get more scrutiny coming into the U.S. for bringing drugs in.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, contraband. Um, you get much more scrutiny coming out of these countries into the U.S. than you do coming in. Let's see here. Following their arrest, waiting there, the News Nation have terrified. Whoops. In response, hold on, where is it? So Ryan Watson, 40, and Brian Hagridge, 39, both fathers of two young children, have spent months in the Caribbean islands following their arrest, awaiting their fate as their case winds through the legal system. Do you know what kind of ammo, like what they, we're all human, we all make mistakes. Ryan said he's still confused over how the ammunition ended up in his luggage, something he'd never done before despite hunting his entire life. I'm very, from the bottom of my heart, I have no recollection of ever putting the ammunition in that bag. I can think of a time that I took that bag on a, I can think of a time I took the bag on a deer hunting trip this past November. I personally don't recall ever putting ammunition in the bag. The bag passed through TSA in Oklahoma City, he said, and that they initially thought the screeners pulled them for his wife's makeup. The men have fallen to a strict law on the Turks and Caicos introduced in 2022 that escalated punishment for firearms and ammunition possession to a 12-year sentence. I will say this. There has been, in the past decade and 5 years, I would say even half decade, there's been a serious uptick in the amount of killings in the Bahamas. And I heard some of the dopers had crossed over in the Turks and Caicos, and they're fighting over drug turf and they're shooting each other.
Mhm.
And that's kind of, and Turks and Caicos is not that big. I mean, there's a bunch of islands, and there's a couple places that could be kind of rough. Um, Chalk Sound Police Station. I'm looking at pictures. Yeah, I know that airport. Um, let's see so they're in an Airbnb. It's like, okay, that's kind of weird. I mean, they're definitely getting special treatment. That's for sure. I mean, they're in holding in an Airbnb. So, do you have any latest on it, or is it?
They've been doing some interviews, so I listened to an interview of the two guys, and they basically said, everything you've said, talking about being terrified of, being away from their kids for 12 years and what they'll miss, and graduations, colleges, weddings, all that stuff. Uh, but then they went on this long diatribe about how it just wasn't fair and it was a human mistake. So basically, they should just be let go. Uh, the problem I have, I'm kind of torn because the gun guy part of me says, it was if it was just a box of .30-06 shells, yeah, 12 years is a little harsh. On the flip side, we would not, if we arrested a foreigner for something that we considered a serious criminal violation in, say, the state of Tennessee, in a foreign government, or the citizens of a foreign country were boohooing about how strict the law was and how it wasn't fair, we would just tell them to cram it up their ass. We do things in America the American way, and you ran afoul of the law here, and you got to pay consequences.
How
So
many
it's
foreigners get jammed up trying to have sex with minors where in
you were
their home
breaking up there.
country that oh, how many foreigners get jammed up trying to have sex with minors, and it's not a problem where they come from.
Yeah.
Like
So,
I don't yeah,
my whole
go ahead.
thing is, if you're traveling with guns, you're traveling with ammunition, you're traveling, period, you need to know, even here in America, you need to know what the laws are, and whether you agree with the laws or not, whether you believe they're constitutional, you still have to follow the law. I travel through Illinois quite a bit with firearms. I have to know what all the little nitnoy laws are in Illinois, or I risk winding up going to the booty house. And if I inadvertently have something that I'm not supposed to have, or my manner of conveyance is against the law in Illinois the way I'm doing it, I have nobody to blame but myself, because the information's out there, and it's upon me as a gun owner to know what the laws are in each of these states. Just because I can do it in Nebraska doesn't mean I can do it in Illinois. Doesn't mean I can do it in DC. So I check my luggage, I double check, I triple check my luggage when I go to get on an airplane. If I'm traveling across state lines that don't have open carry, or enjoy reciprocity with state of Nebraska, I make sure that my stuff is stowed within the bounds of the law before I cross that state line. And that responsibility rests on me. It's not Illinois' fault because they have fucked up laws. It's on me because I didn't follow their laws. That is easy enough to find out what they are. So that's kind
Yeah.
of where I am with these guys in Grand Turks. It's like, you know, if I'm going anywhere like that, I'm going to find out what the laws are, whether I intend to take guns or not. And then I'm going to double and triple check, because it's like, okay, so 130-06 shell could get me 12 years. I am going to make sure that in that backpack, because everybody's too cheap to check their luggage, that I didn't drop a half box of 22 shells from a plinking session in that backpack one time, in one of the
Yeah.
19 pockets that it has.
Yeah. The reason why I kind of know a little bit about where the stuff is in Turks and Caicos is because I actually had researched the possibility of training with that police department there. So I know where their range is. So I mean, it's like, I don't know, like, can I get a gun in Turks and Caicos? Can we work out a deal? It's just kind of exploring the idea. I was trying to hustle up something, and so yeah, I mean, but yes, you were 100% right, and I do agree. And there's some personal responsibility, and you kind of gotta kind of keep your shit tight. I will say right now, I'm not unsympathetic to their problem because I'm so discombobulated with everything with Operation Evacuate Cincinnati. I could very easily. I found in my briefcase that I carry on me all the time. I found a 308 piece of brass in the briefcase because I had picked it up when I was moving stuff, because it's a piece of brass that I had saved of a deer that I had shot, and I wanted to have it mounted with the deer. And so I was
Mhm.
like, "Ooh, I got to keep that." And I put it in my briefcase, and I forgot it was in there. And I could have easily gone through. I mean, what if I'd gone to Turks and Caicos with a piece of fired 308 brass? I mean, that's probably. It sounds like it's so strict because they don't want anything. I mean,
Mhm.
shit. I could very easily get caught with a piece of brass right now. I could easily make a mistake. I read this story and I'm like, man, I gotta check my shit. Like, I really gotta be careful. So,
Yep,
yeah,
and that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, you always hear stories of, people trying to go through TSA here in America, and oops, I forgot to take my little Glock out of my briefcase that I carry every day before I left for the airport.
yeah, I've worked
You
with a
know, they
guy. He was a SWAT commander person, and he was going through the airport, and a piece a loaded round was in something that they had found, and he was like, "Oops," and they're like, "Okay, never mind." But it was like he knows better, but it was, he didn't even flash credentials. They were like, "What's this?" He's like, "I'm a cop and this and that, and I do this and I train this."
yeah.
And they're like, "Okay, don't do that again." He just told them, and they're like, "Okay." But it's, he'd done that in Turks and Caicos. If his wife is like, "Let's go on vacation," like, holy shit. So, yeah. All right, we've been going for a while. Let's go do the police blotter and toss this one because I don't want to keep you up too late. So, I got three here, and the first one is an example of, um, um, the first one is an example of. I see your text message, by the way, but it's recording, so it won't be bad.
Okay.
Kraken's telling me that the audio is kind of breaking up on his end, and because I have such a bad internet connection here, it just sucks. But at the John 1911 range, it'll be better. We have high speed. So anyway, first thing, this is out of New York. This is a woman. This is why I'm really against public schools. Teacher fired for creepy texts sent to student is working in a school. And so Duane Almonte, 33, was let go from her job at Harry S. Truman High School in the Bronx in 2020 after a special commissioner investigation found she had behaved inappropriately with students. She sent 28,000. Let me read that again. 28,000 late night texts to a 17-year-old female student over the course of 14 months and shared 1,900 messages, 1,900 with another male in the 12th grade. And she got run out of the school, and she ended up getting a job at a private school. And so here we go. She said, quote, "They found out she's working at a private school. Quote, it's not a crime, but still got fired, which is honestly why the DOE can suck a big prick." Almonte said, "Still a teacher, can't touch me." She literally is on record saying that. Still a teacher, can't touch me. And it's like, all right, okay, that's cool. The second one is there's video. This is out of Sacramento, California. And I'm going to have to send this to you, Kraken. This is unbelievable. So, high school rowing, right?
You were breaking up. I didn't catch
Yeah,
that.
you know what high school rowing is?
High school
You know,
what?
high school rowing, where like the kids, they
Rowing.
row.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, yeah, rowing.
yeah. There's
Gotcha.
video, there's video of these kids. They're rowing down a river inside of Sacramento, and someone starts shooting at them. You hear the gunfire, and you see the impacts around these kids. And it's in the middle of the day, and it's just like, holy cow. Um, it says, appears a shooter targeted a high school rowing competition right along the Sacramento River. Members of the Oakland Strokes rowing team were competing in the Sacramento River channel, whatever, on April 20th, and someone started shooting at them. They're still looking for somebody. It's like, wow, that's just terrible. And the third one is, this one is an example of, I'm just getting sick of these protesters. And this is one, I hate, and these are old people. These people look like they are in their 80s or in their 70s doing this. Just Stop Oil, so anti-oil protesters, have hammers and chisels, and they're trying to smash the display to break into the display of the Magna Carta. People that go to the museums and I think I'm definitely losing Kraken. The things that they go to the museums and they throw stuff on the Mona Lisa and do whatever. Uh, Reverend Sue Parfit, 82, and Judy Bryce, 85, a retired biology teacher, targeted the protective enclosure with a hammer and chisel on Friday morning to the Just Stop Oil pair that help a sign the government is breaking the law and glued themselves to the display. And it's like, the Magna Carta. This is a pretty historically significant and important document. And these people, I mean, if they were yelling Allah Akbar and they want to destroy Western civilization, we'd shoot them in the head. But these old people get to try to destroy or endanger this document. And, it's like, oh, it's all for fun. It's like, you know what? They need to put these people under the prison. So, well, I think we've definitely lost Kraken. So this wraps up episode 337 of the John 1911 podcast. See any stories or pictures, links of anything we discussed, please go to the website at John1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good night.
Night, everyone.